Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Find a Moment podcast, where we navigate the space between ideals and everyday life. We are your hosts, Gretchen Roberts and Jennifer Ford, and we look forward to finding a moment with you today.
Hello, and welcome back to Find a Moment. We are continuing our Meet the Artists series, and this has been a fun series because it's pretty much all interviews except for our introduction, and we'd love for you to go back and listen. So far, our first two episodes have been with my daughter, Amelia, who's 17, and then our friend Simon, who is also 17. And so today we have another very special guest that is a longtime friend of Gretchen's. And so, Gretchen, I'd love for you to set this up.
Yes, today we are so excited to welcome Dr. Kricia Palmer to the Find a Moment podcast. And I have known Kricia for a long time. We were in the same medical school class. And I was thinking about just kind of the first time of getting to know Kricia. When you get into this medical school class, there's all these different people, and they are all so smart. And then there's Kricia, who was like next level smart. And so I just have always admired, like, she's so thoughtful and so meticulous and so excellent in everything that she does. And so I remember through medical school just looking up to her like she has it all together and she is so smart. So it was just a joy to get to know her and to see just how life has taken. We both did pediatric residencies in Little Rock, Arkansas, and then to see kind of where her path went and my path went, and then to still be able to somewhat connect over social media and kind of to follow each other and see our different journeys. But we just want to welcome Kricia. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Gretchen. And I have to say that I appreciate your kind words. They mean a lot because I remember specifically, multiple moments throughout medical school and residency, but it's funny because the way you describe me is actually, well, let me just set this up. So I was starting my PICU, pediatric ICU rotation, and you were coming off your pediatric ICU rotation. And I was so nervous.
Oh.
I was so, during that time, just so, maybe the meticulous part came in from me just being so fearful of making a mistake. But I remember you were signing off your patients, and you had finished your rotation. You were so confident. You were telling me all about this patient. And I didn't even, this is my first rotation in the PICU. I had no idea what you were talking about. And I was like panicking, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for this. So the fact that you saw that, I really, really appreciate that. It means a lot. It really means a lot, because that's what I thought of you. I was like, oh my gosh, she's just like got this down. She's not scared. She's telling me all about this patient. And here I am like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Well,
I remember that vividly.
Thank you. I was thinking about that just in general and just about how we had all that time together but not really, there's not the margin or the vulnerability in that season to really say, hey, this is really hard for me. Or like, I remember I was telling Jennifer, I came back after having Molly and had postpartum depression and just feeling like, I can't really tell anybody this, like I have to have it together, and there really isn't time to like have a meaningful conversation and tell somebody how you're feeling. And so it's interesting that we both kind of felt that about each other and felt the insecurity of our own selves. So it's an interesting season.
Yeah, it is for
All
sure.
about training, but so we started out in medicine together, and then tell us about kind of, if you want to, you can go back to kind of your younger years of kind of how you're started with the arts and kind of your creativity background, or if you'd rather start with kind of how your transition was out of medicine. We would love to hear your story.
Sure. I think it'll make more sense if I start more towards the beginning, because it gives you just a little bit more context to why I made the change I did. Growing up, I was very interested in the arts. I loved theater. I danced, not so much visual arts, but I was just more of kind of a creative, artsy kid. And I happened to do well in school. And growing up, I always thought I wanted to be an actress or a dancer. That was like my
Oh,
childhood
I
dream.
love it.
And so when I went off to college, I was initially a dance performance major at Oklahoma City University. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they've got a great performing arts program. I was in college there with Kristen Chenoweth. Um,
Wow.
yeah, she was there during that time, and I was a dance performance major in their dance company. And pretty soon after I started, maybe like 6 months in, I realized it probably wasn't the path that I wanted to stay on because I didn't want to teach. I didn't want to end up teaching. And even if you have a successful performance career, most people end up teaching, and I just didn't have a desire to do that. So, and I realized too, it's like you go to med school, everybody's smart. You go to dance, and everybody's better than you. Like,
Mm,
it's competitive. And
mhm.
so I was like, okay, I don't think this is for me. So I really kind of felt lost, didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had had a really good high school biology teacher that was very encouraging to me. And I did enjoy, that's kind of the first time in high school biology that I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. Like, I do like this. And she would always tell me, Chris, you need to go to med school. You need to go to med school. And I just kind of blew her off at the
Mhm.
time because I was like, no, I'm going to go dance.
Right.
So when I decided to kind of retire from dance as a profession, I was like, well, maybe I should just go to med school. And I think we expect so much from our kids at 18. You don't know
Right.
what you like, you don't know what you want. I mean, you have been exposed to a little bit here and there, but not a lot. So I had the personality where I was always up for a challenge. And I
Mhm.
thought that that sounded hard. And I'm an empath. So I very much have to do something with a sense of purpose. And so I was like, well, that's what I'll do. I'll become a doctor. And so I went full in, finished college, went to medical school. I feel like it was probably during residency when I really started to feel that it was probably a career mismatch for me.
Wow.
Number one, I'm extremely introverted, so it took a lot of energy to perform at that level that you have to when you're busy and seeing patients. And the other thing is, even though I'm sort of both right and left brained, I'm dominant to the right. So
Mm,
that creative part of me was just starving.
mm,
And I actually went into a significant depression
mm,
during residency, although I didn't realize it at the time.
mhm.
I had no self-awareness.
Right.
Did not know it. And then ended up doing a fellowship in allergy and immunology, really because I think it was more that I just didn't know what I wanted. I knew I was probably not in where I needed to be, but I was just kind of delaying that decision of like, do I stay here or do I go somewhere else? So
Mhm.
eventually I did finish my fellowship. I practiced at 2 years for Arkansas Children's Hospital. And I mean, I wouldn't give up that experience for anything. I
Mhm.
mean, it made me who I am today. And I enjoyed the part of being able to interact with patients and help people. I was very frustrated with just the speed and the pace that I had to go at.
Mhm.
I'm an empath, so I would want to take like a morning and spend it with two patients that I could really be thorough, really get to know them on a personal level, and that's just not how modern our healthcare
Right.
system works. So that was also very frustrating to me.
Mhm.
So I was thankfully in a position, my husband's a ER physician where I didn't have to work. I had my two boys were Grant was my oldest was about 3 at the time, and Jude was a newborn. Grant has right-sided hemiplegia, cerebral palsy, and he's great now, but at the time he had significant developmental delay and required a lot of therapy, just a lot of hands-on time. And
Mhm.
I didn't feel like I could keep working in medicine and really give him the amount of time and attention I wanted to. So I made the decision to leave medicine and stay at home with the boys. And after a couple of years of doing that, I decided to go back and get my interior design degree. And I did that like one or two classes a semester because I didn't want to sacrifice the time with my kids. That was my priority. So I had like 2 years of classes, interior design classes to do. It took me like 7 years to do all those because I went so slowly.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did. I eventually got my degree, kids were older by that time. And then I worked for a couple of years with a local designer, and now I have my own interior design business.
Wow.
So I finally feel like it's definitely feels like home to me, more in
Mhm.
the creative, artistic arena. So yeah, that's how it all
Wow.
happened.
Such an amazing story. See, I did not know the performance and dance side in the past. That is so neat. What was it like growing up? Like, how did you balance all of your creative and dance and all of that and with the academics of school? So, like, as a child, how did you balance it?
I don't remember it being challenging until high school, I guess, because I feel like school came easy to me until like my junior and senior year, and that's when you kind of everybody kind of has to start
Right.
studying. And I was always really primarily focused on dance and art and theater. So I just kind of went through the motions of school. So I didn't really seem like a lot of stress at that time.
Hmm.
It became more of an issue, of course, in college and medical school, especially because, like you said, medical school and especially residency, I mean, you don't have that margin to do
Mm-mm.
anything else.
Hmm.
So I wasn't doing anything creative, during that time.
You're describing yourself. There's a lot of self-awareness. I'm an empath, I'm an introvert. And that's something that we kind of talk about, like in so many of our different conversations. We have a 17-year-old who we're having so much of what you're talking about is, it reminds me so much, Gretchen, of Amelia, where she doesn't want her artistic loves, she doesn't want those things to be kind of diluted by the pressure of having to be creative for somebody else. So I'm hearing so much of similarities. But did you know at the time that you were an introvert? Did you know at the time that you were an empath? Like, and what are some of the things that you know about your personality now that you've kind of learned that maybe would have helped you make that decision sooner, if any?
That is such a good question because I was not aware of any of
Mm.
that at all. As far as being an introvert, at that point, at that stage, I have a mom that's very much extroverted. So I was very introverted. So she always sort of pushed me to speak up for myself and to put myself out there in a good way. She didn't pressure me highly. I think she was kind of confused by me because she's so extroverted, but she would nudge me enough to where it did give me the confidence that I could speak up when I didn't feel comfortable, or I could go into situations that I probably would have avoided if she hadn't encouraged me.
Mm.
So at the time, I wasn't aware of that my true need and my strength really does lie in the more my introverted self. Like I function best when I'm working alone, when I'm kind of in my own head, and I need a lot of time to, I'm able to kind of function in a more extroverted way if it's something I'm very passionate about, but it still drains me.
Hmm.
So I know that now. So I'm able to, like, I choose and kind of crafted my life now, building on those strengths. That being an, I thought something was wrong with me because I was quiet and shy. I
Mm.
don't view it as something wrong with me now. I view it
Hmm.
as a strength, and I can navigate my life to protect that because that's how when I'm at my best. As far as it being an empath, I see that I always have been, but I just wasn't aware that I just was not aware
Hmm.
that I was. I just knew that I cared about people and I wanted to do something that made a difference.
Hmm.
So I think, I feel like we've come so far in just mental health awareness that wasn't there when we were growing up. I feel like if I had some of that awareness, which I've tried to teach my kids, I can see such a difference in my kids' self-awareness than mine at that age. I
Hmm.
would have been able to sort of understand where I was and maybe tweak my choices a little bit to align more with that. I felt like I kind of worked against myself because my attitude was like, something's wrong with me. I'm shy and introverted. So I've got to work really hard to be the opposite and do all the opposite things, which
Right.
I mean, you just end up living not in alignment at all. And that's how I
Hmm.
felt.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with Myers-Briggs or Enneagram,
Yes.
Clifton
Oh,
Strength, any of those?
I love all the Enneagram and Myers-Briggs stuff. I'm fascinated by it.
Are you comfortable sharing what you
Yeah.
are?
I am an INFJ
Okay.
Mhm.
and I'm an Enneagram Type 4.
Okay.
Yes, very good. I love it. I'm an ENFJ, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, and so my oldest three children are all introverts.
Mhm.
And so I remember when they were younger, and we'd be out at places and people would say, "Oh, they're so shy." And I remember as their mom thinking, they're not shy. Like they're not, it's just they're just in their head and they're their own, like there's not some, I remember feeling defensive, like they don't have a shell they need to come out of. Like they're being who they are. And so I read the book Quiet. Have you?
That changed my trajectory because it
It,
made me realize, oh my gosh, that's me. Totally.
yes. Well, it totally changed my understanding of my children and of how our world is set up for extroverts to thrive.
Yes.
But yet the introverts are all the ones running the world
No.
and making all the discoveries and so it just gave me this appreciation for introvert because I remember, do you remember in our, I think it was our first year that we did Myers-Briggs in med school, like we all
Yes.
had to, yeah. And so that was my first time doing it. And I remember I was like all the way on the extrovert and all the way on the feeling. Like I was, the most feeler. And then Greg, my husband, was like all the way on the T. So like he had no, so it
Yeah.
just helps you understand. And he's all I too. So but yeah, that book really helped. We can link that one in the show notes too. But it was such a help because people, I think in general, they do see like, oh, there's something wrong with this person because they aren't talking and, in public and all. But it's interesting that your mom still was able to kind of stretch you a little bit in that.
Yeah, and like I said, she wasn't really pushy about it, like not in a bad way. I think it was in a healthy way. Like I think that I
Mhm.
would probably, I'm glad I was able to develop those skills.
Right.
And in fact, when I took during that residency retreat, when we took the Myers-Briggs, we took it at the beginning and the end, I think, of residency.
Okay.
And I was an INFJ. And what's funny is, I had to function like an extrovert through all of residency. And at the end, we took it again, and I was an ENFJ. But my personality did not change. I think because INFJs, one of the characteristics is we are really good at being chameleons. So we can sort of play the role wherever we go. So I was just playing the role of an
Wow.
extrovert. Because then years later, when I went back and took it again, I was an INFJ. And I mean, I'm an introvert for sure. But it was interesting to me how taking it after residency, it did it
Right.
did appear that I had changed, even though I really hadn't.
Hmm. That shows how hard you worked at that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think I remember your brother is an artist too, right? Isn't he a
He's a
musician?
musician.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So did he always have that creative side too?
He's always been that way. He was good at school, but he was never really interested in anything academic. And he and his band have found a lot of local success and are still kind of working with. He's actually has made some really cool contacts and still working to try to kind of make it mainstream. So we'll see what happens.
That's so neat. So you stayed home with your children and navigated that. And how do you feel like you were able to cultivate creativity and kind of the space for that expression with your children?
It wasn't anything that really did intentionally, and I think it's mainly because it just comes so naturally to me.
Mm,
Because I think I'm an introvert, but like if I'm alone or just with the kids or with a small circle of people that I know well and can be vulnerable with, I'm kind of like a big kid, very goofy, very
oh,
spontaneous, break out in a Broadway song about something that I need to teach my kids. So it just comes naturally. So I was always like, I built my son a stage in his room and I would do plays with him. So that's kind of how I played. So I would just, I think it just came out with play, you know, and just sort of a child, like I feel like a big kid. And that's what creativity is just keeping that
Mm,
childlike wonder and kind of viewing the world through play, even as adults.
mhm.
Uh, so I wasn't really intentional about it. It was just kind of the way I lived, especially when it was just me at home with the kids.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. So your oldest is pursuing
He
artistically, right?
is.
Yeah.
He is studying film and television. He wants to write, be a screenwriter and direct
Wow.
film. And he's
Wow.
known that since when I tease him because when he was little, he would pick out his favorite DVD and he would carry it around with him everywhere he went. He would sleep with it. He would watch it over and over and over. And then after a couple weeks, he would change to a new one. And because he's got right-sided hemiplegia, so his lesion is in the left thalamus. And so I think the effect of that is he just really has specific, it could kind of mimic autism characteristics, although
Mhm.
it's just because of where his lesion is. He's not necessarily on the spectrum. But I think that that's helped him. He really zoned in early on his love for film. And he has always watched film, not just for entertainment, but more like for character and storytelling arcs and what it
Wow.
said, what the bigger picture behind the film is. And so he's kind of pursuing his dream now and going to try to do that.
Wow. What were some of his favorites growing up?
Growing up, he when he was real little, like he loved Power Rangers.
Yes.
He got on typical stuff. Really, when he was
Yeah.
little, it was kind of typical stuff for kids. As he grew older, like right now, his favorites are La La Land,
Hmm.
Damien Chazelle. There's a movie called Whiplash that's about a drummer that's really good, but he tends to like really deep, sort of character-based, emotional movies. That's what he's drawn
Hmm.
to, and
Hmm.
that's what he wants to make.
Hmm. Do you know their Myers-Briggs or Enneagram?
I know that, so Grant, I have not, I've tried to figure him out and I've asked him to take the test and he just hasn't. You know how that goes. I'm like,
Yes.
please take this. My younger son, Jude, is an INTJ.
Mm.
And so I'm an INFJ, he's an INTJ, and we are both Enneagram top fours.
Oh, wow.
So I imagine if I had to guess, Grant is probably an ENFJ. He's more extroverted. He processes out loud
Hmm.
more and doesn't, so he's probably on the spectrum, he's probably more towards the middle, but definitely I think probably an ENFJ, if I had to guess.
Hmm.
Kricia, one of the things that we talk about a lot on our podcast is this idea of having ideals, but then still living in the reality of everyday life. And so sometimes those things align, but a lot of times they don't. So, how do we keep ourselves focused on ideals, even in the moments which tend to be plentiful, even in the moments when we feel like life is just not coming together the way that we would desire or hope? And so, as an artist, what would you describe as your ideal? And I'll let you be kind of as loose or, interpret this however you'd like. As an artist, how would you describe your ideals? And then what does everyday life tend to look like? And how do you kind of handle when those two aren't aligning?
Yeah, that's a good question because they don't often align in reality. I think I can speak to that two ways. One, as an interior designer, which I'm learning I'm kind of a frustrated artist in that capacity because there is a difference between doing something artistic for someone else for money and art, and it's just art, doing art for art's sake. Big difference.
Hmm.
I will say that ideally in my interior design world, I would have a client with a good budget, a big budget, who is willing to think out of the box and do new, exciting things. Because I look at my interior design as more like an art form. It's just that my medium is the environment.
Hmm.
So I would be able to, I'm not someone that wants to just come in and impose all of my creative ideas and visions onto somebody else. Like I want to get to know, I want to get to know you. I want it to express you. So being able to have the time and capacity to really get to know somebody and create what they probably couldn't create themselves and for them to love it. Well, the reality is that most the budget, even my budget, if I were going to hire a designer, things are expensive and high-end design has gotten a lot more expensive even in the past 10 years. So typically you are confined by budget and you're also confined by just human nature. Most people aren't really open to exploring new things that may seem scary to them. When I tell them, hey, we could do this, and I have this, and I can picture in my mind how it can come together, but people have a hard time visualizing that, even if I show them a visual. So
Mhm.
you meet a lot of resistance. So you end up having to really limit your vision and working within a lot tighter sphere.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, that in itself, what I've tried to do, so that's my ideal. That is not reality. It has not been a reality on any project that I've ever done. There are always so many more limitations. So, for a while, I really let it get me down. And I was frustrated, and I would be like, why can't they just, why can't they understand that this is going to look great? Why can't they trust me? All of this. And it was just burning me out. So
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I have to work on my mindset. So I took a step back. And so anytime I feel that coming up inside of me, I'm like, okay, I understand where this is coming from. I understand why this is not their field. They're not a creative. Creatives think differently. So I understand where they're coming from. How can I work within these parameters that I have and truly create the most creative best thing I can do within these parameters. And so that just helps me bring out the best of myself. It's better for them because they're happy. So it's something that it doesn't come easy to me. It's something that I have to go back to every time and sort of coach myself
Mhm.
so that I'm coming to the project with an openness because I can't do my best work if I'm irritated at my client or irritated at the circumstances.
Right.
So that's kind of ideal in real life.
Mhm.
That's great. So, is there anything that you do aside from working with clients to kind of satisfy that need to create and it truly be just an outpouring of what's happening in your mind?
Yes, and that helps too. So we ended up buying a property up in Northwest Arkansas to use as a vacation rental. So we did that. We've been wanting to invest in real estate for a while, and we'd like to do more, but we just can't at this time. But that gave me, I had my own budget, which was very limited, but I could still do whatever I wanted. So
Mm.
that was very fulfilling to be able to see that through. The other thing I've started to get more into is just the visual arts. It's something that I took quite a few art classes as a part of my design degree, but that visual arts I had never really like I didn't take art in elementary school or high school. It was more like theater, dance, and that sort of thing. So I've been taking some classes at the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts and exploring visual arts more and just letting myself. I went through a time period where I was like, okay, I'm a perfectionist. I've got to paint this. It's got to look good. And that's not how art works.
Mhm.
So I've tried to let myself just play and experiment. And the other thing that's helped me with that is I've been in therapy for the past year. I've been in therapy intermittently in the past, but really deep, intense work over the past year. And it has really helped me in just healing of a lot of things. So approaching art from that standpoint has been so therapeutic
Mm.
and satisfying.
I'm so like I'm even just thinking I want both of my girls to hear this conversation. I mean, I wish that they could just sit down in on the couch with you and just chat and listen to you
Well, I
because
would be happy to chat with them
oh my
anytime.
word. I mean, even just as a mom, I'm like, this is so encouraging for me in this season of life with, you know,
Mhm.
two creatives in high school and looking at, what's next for them.
So have you been doing drawing or painting or both, or what are some of your favorites?
Drawing and painting and some collage art.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's what I've done so far. I'm really kind of interested in experimenting with some mixed media and sculptural
Oh,
type type things. And I have lots of ideas. I'm just at the point where I'm kind of like I need to make it a practice because it's really easy to like for me to procrastinate, even though I really want to. There's something I think there's something in you that like for so long I was such a perfectionist and I thought I had to do everything perfect. It's hard not to bring you can't bring that to art. It doesn't work that
mhm.
way. And so it's uncomfortable to let yourself really just be a beginner and make mistakes. And my intention is to set aside specific periods of, multiple times a week. That's my art time where I just let myself do art and
Mm.
then see what comes out of that rather than saying, okay, I'm going to paint. It doesn't work. I've tried it in the past. Like, I'm going to paint something to go here.
Oh, right.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I can, but it's never going to be the same as if I'm like really letting whatever's in me come out and express whatever I'm feeling in
Mhm.
whatever media I'm working with.
Mhm. Do you feel like it is a return to that childlike wonder?
I do.
You do.
I do. It's so interesting. And I think recently I've seen a lot of social media posts on that about how, like, as you reach middle age, you actually just become who you were at 16, but you
Mm.
accept yourself, you know?
Oh,
That's how I feel.
I love that idea. That is really powerful.
It's interesting because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm returning to all those things that I loved as a child.
Hmm.
I get emotional thinking about it.
Oh,
You can tell I'm definitely a feeler.
yes. I am right there. I feel it with you. It's so good.
But
Wow.
just giving myself permission to and I do recognize I'm in a very privileged position to be able to explore those interests
Hmm.
and have the time to do that. So I recognize that not everybody has that freedom and that time to do that. So I'm very thankful for that.
When you think about the margin of all of our lives, I think there are things that we could easily remove to give us that creative time. What I am seeing with the noise of the world is so like engulfing that it takes energy to remove yourself from that, to give yourself that space to be creative or to try something new. And so I would just encourage anybody listening, no matter how busy you are or regardless of what finances are, to step out and to explore something creative, or even if it's just to sit outside in nature and just say, what should I create? Or, how can I ignite that or reignite that childlike wonder? I mean, there's such a, like you said, a healing in that too.
I think a lot of it I've noticed, especially for people who are really busy and maybe don't have a lot of margin, is try to slow down enough to notice the little things because we're so rushed, we're so inundated with screens and social media, and I struggle with it myself.
Mhm.
But just looking out the window and actually taking notice of
Hmm.
the small things in nature, I think that's huge.
Hmm.
Or taking notice of other people, like in a deep way.
Yes.
It's just observation, deep observation and thoughtful observation. Because I think that from that is where you get more autistic inspiration. But I think you have to notice those things first.
Hmm.
And that's very simple in any setting.
Right.
I feel like, Krisha, I feel like I just recently saw something on social media, but it was articulating the exact thing that you just said. Like interfacing with nature can give us what we need. If we're kind of feeling, I have no inspiration, my ideas are dry, just being exposed to nature, something about that interfacing with the things around us outside, somehow that bubbles up idea or inspiration or whatever that is to actually give you something to work out. I also just kept thinking as you were talking about using art as a way to heal yourself. I mean, art therapy, people spend years in college to get art therapy degrees. And that's something that with different seasons for our family, I've seen that be really helpful for our kids. And I find myself being drawn to creative things when I feel stressed, but I still have the discipline, like what you were saying, Gretchen, to pull myself away from the noise. I just appreciate you saying that you actually see that actually is useful and fruitful for you. And I feel like too for women who are moving into and coping, I don't want to say coping, for women who are living through that empty nest season when you're dealing with that grief, and that's something that like nobody, it's like menopause, nobody talks about it, and you don't know how hard it's going to be, but to know that artistic expression is a way to help move yourself through that in a healthy way. I'm really grateful that people will get to hear not just this as an idea or a suggestion, but for people to hear from you and your testimony that this is actually a way that you're seeing benefit from it in your heart and in your mind and in your spirit. And that translates to health in your home, health in your marriage, health as you're continuing to love your kids who have transitioned into college or the ones who are grieving, what's to come or what's already happened. Like Simon was talking with our last episode about what it was like when his older brother moved away to college. Like we forget that our kids that are still at home need us to be available to them for that. So you nurturing yourself makes you more able to be there for your son who's also, working through that and preparing for his own transitions. Will he graduate? Is it this year that he
We
graduates?
graduate in May.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's a lot of life.
you know.
Mm. So, what advice would you have for the woman listening or person listening who kind of has those dreams bubbling in their mind and they're on a certain path and they're like, maybe I should make a 180 and do this? Like, going back to that time for you, do you have advice for someone processing that?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I went through a lot of, I actually felt really guilty for a long time because I had spent so much time and effort into getting to where I was, when I was actually practicing medicine. And I felt, there was this whole thing about like what are all my colleagues going to say? What are they going to think? They're going to think I'm crazy. Oh my gosh, you practiced for 2 years and now you're not going to practice anymore. There was a sense of obligation to like, I took a spot, I took a residency spot, I took a fellowship spot. So all of that came into play. At the end of the day, I knew that I had to take care of my mental and emotional health, and that's really what it had come down to. So I made the decision just knowing no matter what anybody else thinks, I have to do what's right for me. And it's funny because even the first like year or two, I did not tell anybody else. I
Mhm.
didn't like people knew I left medicine, but they didn't know I was going to go study interior design. And I didn't lie about it or intention. I just wouldn't bring it up. I wouldn't talk
Mhm.
about it. And then slowly, once I got into that path, I started becoming more confident and, kind of putting it out there. And now I'm very open with it and I talk about it. But I would say, ultimately you have to do what you feel is aligned for you
Mhm.
and you have to take care of yourself. And what we do affects other people, but I feel like there's a healthy way to look at it and whether it's talking with a therapist or talking with someone close to help, to be supported. And I think that in society now it's becoming, for a long time it's like you grow up, you pick one thing and you work at that for the rest of your life. I feel like even on social media there's I think we're realizing that that's not necessarily how we're made to live our lives. I
Mhm.
actually think of my life in stages, like what am I doing for this stage in my life? And it may be different in 15 years. I'm sure mine will be. I'm very much kind of like to explore different interests. So I think that that helps. I think people are trying or coming to understand like you can make a change, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means that this is who I am during this stage of my life, and this is what I
Hmm.
want to explore, and that's okay.
Mm. That freedom to grow and change, that's so powerful.
Mhm.
Kricia, what are some of the things that have been most meaningful to you in terms of your husband and your kids, like your family, the people who've known about you, who knew about that transition for you? What were some of the most meaningful and supportive things that they did to help affirm those decisions for you to change directions?
Yeah. I was very fortunate that my husband was always very supportive.
Hmm.
He, I think he saw how unhappy I was during that time right before I left medicine. Really, and the sort I really felt a lot of frustration because I wanted to be at home with my kids, especially with one having special needs. But he's been supportive. When I told him I wanted to go back and get my design degree, anything creative that I've pursued since then, he's just like, I support you. And it's just been amazing. Like no qualifications, no exceptions, just he supported me. So that's, and he's always believed in me,
Mm.
which, even like before I opened up my own interior design business, I had no business experience. I was not an entrepreneur. And so that's a whole skill set.
Mm.
The design part came easy. It was the entrepreneurial business skill set that I had to learn and build that was hard. But he always believed in me. My kids are young, but they've just like, this is what mom does. And
Mhm.
my parents, they've always been supportive as well. Just, no one in my personal ring ever questioned it or made me feel bad about it or anything. Everybody, I'm thankful because I know that's not always the case, but everybody was supportive. And
Mm.
I'm so appreciative of that.
Have you found ways, like, have you incorporated medicine into what you're doing now? Like, has there been overlap in that area?
Yeah, there's definitely overlap. I think more, I don't know if it's medicine exactly. I mean, like our environment definitely affects our well-being. So it's more in the area of psychology. So, and I actually during this time, I went back and got my life coach certification. I'm a physician coach. I don't actively coach physicians, but it was all the program that I did was based in just cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes.
That's when I developed more of my self-awareness.
Mhm.
But it really helped me understand perspectives and where different people are coming from and to see past, like, if I'm working with a client and they're going through something, it's not like I see them in 3D, so I can understand what's going on and sort of work with them, because designing someone's home is a very intimate project and it involves a lot of trust. So I feel like it was more, maybe not medicine itself, but it was the more like interacting with people in very serious situations or children in very, life or death situations. Those skills definitely I can apply when interacting with my clients.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah. So thinking about your business now, like what is your day to day like? Like and what all does your business entail?
Yeah, so I design rooms. Initially, I only designed rooms for other women physicians because I found there's a really strong community of women physicians online. So I formed a Facebook group and really got to know a lot of people that way. And so a lot of my clients were remote. So I do room by room design. I do it a little bit differently than maybe your local designers, because most people that work locally, they'll come in, they'll design the room, they purchase all the products, and they come install all the products.
Mhm.
Because I work remotely and because I'm more of a creative and less like logistic, detailed person, I decided that I did not want to do all the purchasing and installation because that's more of that left brain part it's
Mhm.
not I can do it, but I don't really enjoy it. So I was like, I'm just going to do the creative part and then let my clients, wherever they are, tell them exactly what to get, links to purchase. all the details for how to set it up and let them do that. And so I just sell my creative vision, which is where I excel. So
Mhm.
a typical day, I do most of my client meetings on Zoom. I work on, do design work, present their design to them over Zoom. And the past year I've slowed down intentionally because it's my last couple of years with my boys and design work is very time consuming.
Mhm.
I've slowed down, so I've been really selectively taking clients on so that I can have more space last year, so I could be with my son before he went off to college. And then this year, Jude has to travel a lot to golf tournaments, and I take him to all those.
Mm.
So I've slowed down intentionally, but that's given me space to do more visual art just when I have time and some writing and poetry and things like that
Oh,
that I've been.
I love
And I'm really
that.
enjoying this. Like I may not ramp it back up. I may just stay here
Mhm.
and take on a client here or there when I want to, because I'm really enjoying this more of a artistic freedom just for like the sake of art itself.
Mhm. Oh, I love that so much. And poetry, that's so neat.
Yeah, I didn't know that was in me. That has been a surprise because I was going through some really processing a lot of stuff in therapy, and it's not like I was like, I'm gonna write some poetry and I would sit there and try to write. That just kind of came to me. And I started when I was experiencing some really deep feelings, I would just start writing in my notes app, Google Notes app,
Mm-hmm.
and I would just write out my poem and then go back and refine it. And so I've been writing a lot of poetry and really expressing some of the things that I was processing in therapy. So that has been extremely healing. And then some of the poems I will share with my therapist.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really, really good, healthy and it's just for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So have you thought about writing a book? Like I'm seeing like all this visual and then poetry, like is
Actually, I'm working on a book.
are you?
It's
Yay!
not on what you think it might be on what you might think the topic is. It's actually, I don't really want to share right now what it's
Yeah,
about.
sure.
I will say that it is a book about something that I feel very passionate about and I feel like needs to be talked about out loud. And I'm kind of scared to do it, but I've started it and
Mhm.
I'm interviewing a lot of people that I need to interview for it. And
Oh,
it's coming, but I don't really feel comfortable right now sharing what it's about. It's a
sure.
very sensitive topic.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so proud of you. That's just amazing. Amazing. So, one of the things that we like to do kind of at the end of our episodes is to have some action steps. So, are there things that you would recommend to someone listening who wants to bring some creativity into their life or their home, or, even if it's some kind of beauty in their centerpiece, or, just any kind of recommendations or advice, kind of a little call to action for our listeners?
Okay, I have two things. One is really touchy feeling and kind of woo woo. Well, I guess not really, but the second one is more practical. The first thing I think is just silence and solitude.
Mm,
We never sit in silence and we're usually never alone. And I think that true creativity and just for your mental health and
mhm,
anxiety and things like that. But silence and solitude, whether that be taking a walk by yourself and not listening to music or not listening to a podcast, just being there,
mhm,
that is when I feel like it forces us to really go inward. And
mhm,
I feel like that's where you're going to get, if you're wanting to inspire creativity in yourself, that's where you're going to, that's where you're going to find it. The second thing that is more practical and kind of fun is just romanticize. I like to romanticize life. I get up in the morning and I'm making coffee, or even back when it was busy and I was having to actually take care of my kids and all that. Like I'll put on jazz music, make my coffee, and all, just romanticizing that a little bit.
Mm.
Like I'm having my coffee and listening to jazz, or I'm going to read this book by the fire and really tuning in. I guess it involves your senses,
Mm.
just creating those multisensory experiences that romanticize just those day-to-day activities that we
Mhm.
can do. And I do that, and it just brings me joy. And I think that's something, we get so used to going through the motions and everything's kind of dry and dull and boring. They don't have to be. You can spice them up. You can make them more enjoyable. So that's
Mhm.
the other thing I would say.
I love that. Can you let our listeners know where they can find you? Although you are stepping back a little, but can they
Yeah.
still find you
They can
places?
still find me on Instagram. My account is Design Dr. Kricia.
Hmm.
And then my website is thedesigndoctor.com, and there's a dash in between, the dash design dash doctor.
Great. And we will link those in our show notes too. So, yay.
Well, thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you so much. It was so wonderful to talk to you and connect and just to hear all that you're doing. And I'm really excited for this book announcement in the future.
We'll
I'm
have
going
to
to
have
try
you
that.
back for that.
I'm going to try not to self-publish. I'd like to try to get like a legit publisher, and I've
Yeah.
never done that before. So, who knows? But if that doesn't work out, I'll probably either self-publish or do a Substack.
Oh,
Substack.
nice. Yeah.
So I'll let you know what
Yeah.
happens.
We'll have to definitely have you back for that book launch.
Thank y'all so much for having me. I love talking about this. I love talking about deep things,
Yeah,
and having these kinds of conversations. So it's
I
been
do
good.
too. We are so thankful for that time with you.
Krisha, it's been great to meet you. I can't wait for the world to hear this conversation, but especially my girls.
Oh, it's been good to meet you too. And I'd be happy to chat with them anytime.
Oh,
I will
thank
take
I
you
really
up on
would.
that.
Yeah, I
Thank
really
you.
would.
Mhm.